Hey, everybody. Happy May. I can't believe it's May already, but welcome to our monthly episode of Honest Conversations and Ending Marriages, Relationships, and Having Children series. I'm here with, of course, Christy Legal, where we talk about all these things that are uncomfortable, and yet we got to talk about it because in our line of work, we see a lot of things, don't we, Christy?
Yep, it's a matter of life because pretty much everybody is at least trying to partner up, and lots of people are having children.
Yes, they are having they are having children, and there are lots of decisions that come into play when you have children, when you are ending marriages, and who you decide to marry and have children with, or not even marry but have children with.
Yeah, it is who you have children with and who you partner with, especially who you marry, are the most important decisions that you will ever make.
Right. Yeah. And so for this month, it's May and it is Mental Health Month. It is also Women's Health Month. And we wanted to focus our episode this month correlated to that. And so, Health Month. When we talk about Health Month, I just want to emphasize that we're talking about mental health, we're talking about physical health, we're talking about spiritual health. We're talking holistic health here. And so we're using health to cover all of that. And so we wanted to showcase a few things that are related to, especially women's health and divorces. So, one of the things that I like to do is I actually like to go on the internet to look up articles and supported evidence to just ensure that I'm not pulling stuff out of my ass. I do that sometimes. But that what you and I talk about, Christy, that there is evidence about the issues that you and I talk. Of course, you doing legal stuff and me doing being a psychotherapist. I we hear a lot of stories of our clients, and so we bring that experience, and we also wanted to have a supporting document or supporting evidence about, hey, yeah, Christy and I are talking about things, and there is evidence to support that. And so, to start out with, we wanted to share an article about divorcing when one of the spouses is terminally ill. And unfortunately, divorce usually occurs when the wife is terminally ill. And so I'm going to start out with an article, which is about 3 years. Let's see here. See if I can share this. Present. Ooh, share screen. Okay. I hope you all can see this, but I just wanted to share this article. It's a little older and it's called When a Medical Crisis Strikes, Divorce Can Follow, especially if the wife is sick. And so, a marriage falling apart after a serious diagnosis is more common when the wife is a patient, researchers have found. And so, this article discusses about a baseball player. It's about 3 years old now, and this baseball player, after 22 years of marriage, decided to file for divorce after his wife underwent brain surgery to remove a tumor. And so it just kind of talks more about what can happen, especially in a marriage. And I will definitely put this in the description box too. So just kind of an overview. I'm not going to read everything line by line, but it says illness can intensify marital problems. And let's see here. I think it talks about divorce. Okay, so
Yeah,
it says divorce
so
is
the last
higher when the wife is ill.
the last paragraph
And
here.
what was that, Chrissy?
Last paragraph in this section is the key point. Yeah. Yeah.
Illness. Okay. It says illness can impact on gender roles. And it says women often take on the role of the major caretaker in marriage. And when that person in the role gets seriously ill, it's very disorienting for the couple. So I think there's
Yeah, so it's up a little bit. It was the last paragraph of, so just scroll up just a little bit right there.
Okay. I think men are challenged in caring for someone who has disease and treatment related symptoms, managing the stress and managing the logistics. So, Chrissy, does this surprise you at all?
Well, so like the article is basically saying that, you know, in certain relationships, the woman is supposed to be the emotional caretaker and the otherwise caretaker. And you know what? You can't be the caretaker? Well, you're not fulfilling your role. So I'm out of here. And, you know, if that's the type of relationship where your roles are so clearly defined and, you know, there's no overlap, then yeah, that's what's going to happen. And, you know, that is, you know, this should be writing on the wall for, you know, the traditional wives, or I guess social media is calling them the trad wives,
Hmm.
because, you know, like that is your role when you're the traditional wife. You are the caretaker. And so when you cannot fulfill your traditional role, if your husband is not a real Christian, you know, like a, you know, like an honest, you know, true Christian, um, you know, who believes in, you know, death do you part, until you part, you know, you will be divorced because you are not fulfilling your role in the relationship. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, this baseball player called himself a devout Christian too. It's right in the articles.
And
Oh my goodness.
I was really surprised to read that actually, but I guess maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I mean, I feel that that is totally, against Christianity to be like,
Mhm.
you know, like, "You're not useful to me anymore, so I'm divorcing you." That is not what the Bible says.
Right. Right. And yet they're the ones that use that title the most. I'm a devout Christian. And yet they are the ones that are not living or aligning to the values of Christianity. And I'm not Christian. However, I hear a lot of Christian preach about love and care and being kind. And so this does not sound loving, kind or caring to me.
No, and I am a Christian, and that's why I'm just very puzzled about why he said he's a devout Christian, because that, there's nowhere in the Bible that says you should divorce the person if they're no longer useful to you. You know, if they're no longer able to like take care of your emotional and physical needs and, you know, clean and cook and look really cute.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
So
you?
warning
Yeah.
traditional wives, this is your future, or could be your future if, you know, if you get a chronic mental or physical illness.
Hmm. Yeah. Basically, you can't predict what's going to happen to you or your spouse. Always have conversations and always protect yourself, especially if you're a woman who is choosing not to work at this time. And if you don't work, that's perfectly fine. Also, make sure you have your resources, your support system. And the article did discuss about that have your support system.
Yeah, and I know I've said this in another episode, but or I think I have, but the laws are moving towards eventually basically eliminating spousal maintenance.
Mhm.
So the laws have already turned more in favor of the payor of the spousal maintenance. So if you are, you know, staying at home and not working, just beware that you're not going to be getting spousal maintenance for the rest of your life. And it's very possible that you only be getting 2 years of spousal maintenance.
Wow.
Even though
After the
you,
divorce?
yeah. I mean, right now it's still half the length of the marriage, but then there are all these ways that later on it can be modified,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going towards, basically everybody's getting a couple of years of spousal maintenance and that's it. So you could be 60 years old and have to go back to work
Gosh,
after not working since you were like 25.
that's that's a harsh reality, and I do not wish that in anybody at all.
So just that little piece of legal information on where that's trending.
Yeah.
Um, but then another article that you brought to my attention, Paya, is about Jay Leno. So tell me
Yeah.
about Jay Leno and share that article because that was
Yeah. And so I have here's an article about Jay Leno. For most of us know who Jay Leno is, and for those who don't know, Jay Leno used to be the host of the Late Night Show, which is now taken over by, I believe, Jimmy Fallon. Yes, by Jimmy Fallon. And so Jay Leno talks about being the caretaker to his wife Mavis amid dementia, and says, "I like that I'm needed." And so here is the opposite, where you and I were talking about this, Christy. Like, Jay Leno has money; he can easily leave his wife. He can easily leave his wife and find a younger woman, and so. Um, Let's see here. They've been married for how long here? So she is 78 and he is 74. And because of her dementia, he petitioned to be the legal guardian of his wife. And he was just talking about how hard it is, and yet he finds the humor in caring for someone at her stage. And I think this story is unique because we don't hear about this. We don't hear about this. And that's why, oh, cool. I almost did something else instead. So I almost logged us off. I meant to stop sharing the article here. So I'm like, oh, God. Okay. And so, like that article, you and I talked about the baseball player who is divorcing wife. And then we have Jay Leno who said, I'm caring for her. And honestly, we don't hear much about male caregivers. There are a few out there, but we don't hear or see much about them.
Yeah. And, so Jay Leno even took the step of becoming her guardian. And what that did is it gave him the ability to make legal, financial, and medical decisions for her.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, if she has the intelligence level and social skills of a 12-year-old, like she's not going to know how to take care of herself. She's going to be
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want that medicine. It tastes bad. And
Mm-hmm.
and so, he did what was in her best interest because, that's his wife and he actually does love her. And so now he's making good decisions for her that are going to make her life better and honestly prolong her life. Um, and that is what marriage is supposed to be.
Right. And I also want to point out, and I would acknowledge this, that Jay probably has a lot of resources. He probably does have a lot of resources. He can provide help, he can hire help. And so he probably does get respite. So I do want to acknowledge
Yeah.
that he does have the resources to make it easier. And so does the baseball player, though.
So does a baseball player and even
So does a baseball player. And so I just want to acknowledge that we are using cases of very resource privileged scenarios here, and I want to say that not everybody has those resources. Usually, it's hospice, or if it comes to hospice, um, or you have to pay out of pocket. So I do get that part. I do understand that. And that most people maybe not have the resources as a baseball player and Jay Leno.
well, there are social services programs, and it is also, I'm pretty sure, covered by medical insurance to get like nurses, in home nurses, and PCAs. Um, you're going to have to jump through various hoops and whatnot, but
Yes.
you can get some help. Of course, not 24/7 help,
No.
but some help.
Mhm. Definitely, if there's a social worker, work with a social worker. Yeah, and so, yeah, there are some services out there that maybe insurance may cover, not all. It just depends on the insurance, if it's Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it is. And so, I just want to acknowledge that, but definitely work with a social worker or a coordinator who can help you navigate through all of this. And so I think, with Jay Leno caring for his wife, again, just seems so remarkable because of the article that I we shared earlier. And so there's another article that I think really breaks it down, talk about deciding to divorce a spouse when one of you or one of them has a terminal illness. And the article that I found for this was actually in my goodness. Let's see here. Psychology Today. I'm going to share it quick here. Okay, so this article is actually just 2 years ago. So, deciding to divorce the spouse with a chronic illness, and so it gives 10 points to talk about when divorcing someone with a chronic condition or terminal illness, and every marriage and situation is different. So the answer is not black and white. And I agree with that. It's hard to it's hard to judge or make a decision. I think when you're not part of that marriage, and of course not that part of that marriage, but when you don't know what's going on, and it's easy to say, "Oh, how dare you do that?" So the 10 points here, I'm going to put it in the description box too. And it talks about the emotional, psychological consequences, communication and support, the individual needs and happiness. Um, I saw this so much as a caregiver social work was the exhaustion and burnout of being a caregiver. It is not easy. It is one of the hardest things that can happen for a person. And so, again, here are the 10 steps, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but legal considerations. And
Yeah, so let's
so,
start at the top though and see if we have any comments on any of them. So let's see, what was the first one again?
the first one was called the emotional and psychological consequences.
Oh yeah. So what have your clients talked to say are the emotional consequences of divorcing somebody who has a chronic illness? Have they told you that?
Guilt, including guilt, right here. A lot of guilt. The spouse who initiates the divorce may have conflicting emotions, including guilt at leaving their spouse at a difficult time. Usually, when this happens, Christy, they've already felt for a long time that they wanted to get out of the marriage. And then the person gets ill. And then they feel like they have to stay. And then when they decide that I don't want to do this, it's guilt. And so it's like, do I stay? Do I go? I wanted to go way before. I've already I've already grieved in my marriage. I've already went through all this, and then to have this, it's like I feel stuck. So what should I do? Because unfortunately, a lot of people judge if you decide to go. And so we work through a lot of the guilt.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And then what were the other ones? Number two is communication and support.
Mhm.
Yeah, individual needs and happiness. That's pretty awkward. Exploring alternatives to divorce. so, um, so
Oh,
one option you could do for number five, there, exploring alternatives to divorce, is so I have helped some elderly people get divorced for financial reasons,
mhm.
and because you get more help from the government with medical expenses when you're not married.
Mm.
And also, you don't lose as much of the marital assets to medical assistance.
Mhm.
You're not married. And so, I mean, if the couple does still want to, is still in love, they could get divorced and, but they could still live together and they could still be in love and all the stuff, but like their assets get divided, which is what
Mhm.
happens during divorce.
Mhm.
And we give a little more than half of the assets to the healthy person, and
Mhm.
then the couple doesn't lose all of their assets. um, but they're divorced, so the expenses of the person who's having a lot of medical problems are absorbed by the government. And so that's like, I mean, you're still getting divorced, but you're not ending your relationship.
Mm.
And you're still going to be there for that person. So,
Mhm.
that's another option. Uh,
Yeah.
and so there are options. And let's see, additional well, yeah. So, and number 5 also says, like, getting help. So
Mhm.
talk to the social worker about getting a nurse and getting a PCA, and get some help, and also financial help too. Um,
Mhm.
there could be, to qualify for some type of special medical insurance. Um, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and of course counseling.
Yeah, definitely. Depending on the prognosis, if it's palliative care or if it's hospice, there's a team that is available to help. Again, every situation is different, and so I would definitely s- advise speaking with a social worker or a nurse coordinator, whoever is part of your team, to see what services are available to help you through this.
Yeah. And so like number 7 points out that if you folks divorce, you could be cutting that person off from medical insurance that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about, like, somebody who's not in retirement,
Mm-hmm.
and the spouse who is well could have amazing medical insurance that
Yeah.
like, covers everything and has small co-payments and a small deductible. And so for, that person to divorce the other person would be financially crippling.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we live in America. And everything is, about getting coverage for everything. And yeah, you are correct about that. And going through a terminal and chronic illness, unfortunately, it's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Yeah. And wow. Yeah. Considering how you're going to continue to parent the children,
Mm-hmm.
like, so if you folks divorce, then one would assume you're going to be living in separate houses. And if the parent who is chronically ill um, is really not able to do much parenting, that means that you are going to get like 90% of the parenting time. Are
Yeah.
you ready to parent 90% of the time? And are you ready to be paying for 2 households? Because, if that person is chronically ill and therefore not working, then you're going to be paying spousal maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be paying for 2 households, and you're going to have 90% of the parenting time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of consideration to think about, especially if you have dependents, young children.
Yeah.
Mm. Care and support system, medical and community.
And then the legal considerations. So if the person is not competent,
Mm-hmm.
um, which the definition of competence varies state to state,
Mm-hmm.
but if the person is not competent, you cannot divorce them. without them being provided with a guardian ad litem.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guardian ad litem will make decisions for that person as far as the divorce goes. Um, and yeah, so that's going to make the divorce process more difficult, take longer, and be more costly.
I was just going to say more expensive because, like I said, being a medical social worker, whenever you have to file paperwork with the courts, it's money. Everything is money, money, money. And it's expensive and it's time consuming.
Yeah, so this isn't getting divorced is not a quick fix when someone has a chronic or terminal illness. Um, not in any way whatsoever. And in the state of Minnesota, just I think it was early this year or maybe late last year, some new laws were passed that would actually encourage people to stay married in this type of situation. Um,
Really?
so the new laws state that that like medical expenses that one spouse incurs, um, and then if the spouse passes, that the surviving spouse doesn't have to pay those medical expenses.
Really? That is new.
Yeah, yeah, and this is just Minnesota. This is just
Yeah.
Minnesota. Um, and so really then, like if you're just worried about medical expenses and that's the reason you're divorcing, then actually that takes that away because, you can because literally the expenses are considered an expense of the person who passed, and because after they pass, you are no longer their spouse,
Mm-hmm.
you're their late spouse.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you don't have to pay them.
That's wonderful news because I'm sure before someone passes, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to affect the healthcare system,
Yeah.
but yeah, just a little tip there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, Anything else that you'd like to add about the article, Christy?
Um, yeah, that make sure you don't try to divorce on your own because you don't know what you're doing. I'll just say you don't know what you're doing. And I mean, it's just like you wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself, right?
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah.
Like, obviously you're not going to die from handling a divorce process incorrectly,
Mm-hmm.
but you could cause yourself to have a lot of unnecessary I mean, not medical, excuse me, a lot of unnecessary legal expenses because you just don't handle it right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people contact me because they tried to divorce on their own. And then the judge is like, what the heck? And so then the judge puts them in the litigative system, and
Mm.
then they have to have attorneys. And attorneys are $300 to $550 an hour. And and there's more to do because they've messed up. And if
Mhm.
they had just done it right the first time, it would have been a lot less expensive.
Mm. So don't try to divorce by yourself. Okay. Great advice. So I'm going to stop sharing the article. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before I stop sharing?
No, I think this would be a great time for us to both share about our clients' experiences with this issue. And you go first because your clients have had bad experiences and mine have actually had good.
Right. And so I just want to say that, when people come into therapy, it's almost always when they're feeling the worst of the worst. They're feeling the worst of the worst. Their decision makings, the choices they made have led them to outcomes that they probably didn't anticipate or knew. And because of whatever it was that they're going through, they're like, I'm going to do this. And so I, the first article about about when the wife has a terminal or chronic illness, the husband, spouse would file for divorce. And in my cases, yes, it did lead to divorce. However, there was infidelity first. So unfortunately, it was like infidelity during the time when their spouse, usually their wife, was going through treatment for their terminal illness. And so, because of the decisions that they made, it led to a divorce. And so, of course, they're here in therapy talking about what led them to make the decisions that they chose, which led them to their divorce. And I would say that, not for the most part, but yes, like caregiving is hard, especially when you're not a caregiver and when you don't know how to caregive and you've always been the one in the relationship that was receiving. And so when you're the receiver and somebody now has to be you have to be the one who provides, it's hard to do that. And so in order for you to feel received, you seek out of the relationship to get the receiving that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
didn't think
okay.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah, when you are used to being the receiver and you're not receiving, you're going to look out elsewhere out of the relationship, even though you know that what you're doing is not right. You want to receive.
Have you had clients whose spouse divorced them because they have a chronic illness?
I would say it's more of the burnt out of caregiving for someone who who where they lose a piece of themselves, where it's after where they keep giving and giving and giving and giving, and they realize that I don't have any more to give. If I give any more, I will probably be dead because their health is at a risk.
Hmm.
And what they say, and married men and single child-free women live the longest.
And are the happiest.
Are the happiest, yeah. Are the happiest and are the happiest. And single women without children live longer. So, and so when that happens, when you are a married woman, you give and give and give, and when you give and give, you're going to have all these health issues when you don't take care of yourself. And so, yes, and we talked about guilt. A lot of them come in with the guilt and say, I've done this, I've done that. What more can I do? And it's like, at some point, if they are competent, meaning they can make decisions for themselves, you can't make them get better. You can't make them do things they don't want to do. And at some point, it's like, how much do you keep giving? And if you can't give more, it's like, what is next for you? And so I would say a lot of my women clients come to me when they're at that point of their life where they're giving, 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 and they lose their sense of identity. They've abandoned who they are and um have lost a part of who they are, who lost their identity. And it's like, can I keep giving? It's like, what are your boundaries? What are your boundaries? And you would think that these are like older women, like the boomer generation. Actually, a lot of them were like Gen X and millennials, especially if their spouse had a long history of mental health. When we talked about health, we talked about like at the beginning, and a lot of them have mental health, where they give and give and give and give, and it's like at one point, do I say I can't give anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so have the conversation. What do you do next? What do you do what is best for you? Even though it may be selfish, or you're gonna be looked like, oh, how dare you? It's like what more can you do though? And so it's like having those really hard conversations and trusting, helping them decide what it is best for them. Because they've never been told that they can do what is best for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the situations that I usually work with.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And both of them are really sad and
It is
tragic.
very sad. Therapy is very sad. It's very
Yeah.
sad. And again, my role is never to tell them what to do, is to help them decide what they feel is best for them, what they feel that they need to do. And again, I think especially as women, we've been so conditioned to caregive for other people, to keep giving until we can't give back to ourselves. And it's having that conversation. It's okay to give to yourself. It's okay to nourish yourself because we nourish so many people that we can't even water our own. Yeah, we can't even water ourselves or whatever. I didn't put that in an eloquent way, but yeah.
You'll have time to think about it later.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, I should have said this or that. So yeah, it's really, yeah, it's working with my clients on this. And so those are the scenarios that I mostly work with in therapy when I was doing therapy. And so what about you, Christy? Are yours not as sad as mine, or what would you say your situations are when people come to you when one of them has a chronic or terminal illness?
Yeah. So, two of my cases come to mind, and both of the women had breast cancer. And I honestly, because I'm not a counselor, I try not to get too much information because that will bog down the divorce process.
Mhm.
Um, and so I don't know if these two couples were already having trouble prior to the women getting breast cancer. Um, I don't know if the women were dissatisfied with the marriage prior. I'm gonna guess they were. And so they got breast cancer. But the good thing I'm gonna say for the guys is at least these two clients of mine, the guys like put off the divorce until the women were
Mhm.
medically stable. So until they were declared cancer free and until they were back to work and kind of like you know 75 to 90% back to themselves. And
Mhm.
so that was a really more respectful way. And
Yeah.
actually, it's like, that's the mother of your child if you have children together. And if you don't have children together, hey, that's somebody like who at least one time, at least you said you love. Um, so if the marriage is going to end and if it was her decision or your decision or whoever's decision it was, like, that seems like a better way to end it by allowing
Mhm.
the person to get, like medically well. And both of the women like really needed the medical insurance because the other person had really good medical insurance that was like covering like like a vast majority of the medical expenses.
Mhm.
And I haven't had to deal with cancer, so I don't know. I've just heard it's so expensive.
Is the medication
And
very expensive.
so it's like I was like, well, hey, that's great, at least um they're, you know, got the coverage to get them, to and hopefully they are gonna stay, cancer free. Um, if they don't, then, that's unfortunate. But, that's, the and I've divorced a couple of senior citizens who they were just getting a divorce, not because they didn't love each other, but because, one of them was starting to rack up a bunch of medical bills, and, they didn't want both people to lose all the money.
Mm.
They actually continued to be in love and everything.
Mhm.
Um, and so, honestly, as of now, I haven't had those kind of situations, but I absolutely believe what, the articles are saying, that, it usually is that the woman gets a chronic or terminal illness, and the man ditches them, um, because apparently the vast majority of men are still not willing to do caretaking.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, like that article pointed out, when the caretaker the person who's used to being caretaken is not getting the needs met, um,
Mhm.
then that person just doesn't know what to do. And, one would hope that people could learn how to be a caretaker. Like, we were not born this way. Like,
We're
I
not.
was not born
No.
a caretaker. I had to learn how to be a caretaker. Um,
Right.
just like I had to learn how to do legal stuff or
Right.
stuff or anything. Like,
Mhm.
anybody can, okay, most anybody can learn things, but you have to be willing to do it, and that's the problem.
Right. It's a choice. It really is a choice. It's a choice, and I know the article was saying that, men are used to being the provider, and so when they have to caregive, it's hard for them. It's a choice. You can decide what you wanna do, if you want it enough, and again, we all learn. We all learn our jobs. We all learn how to wash our dishes. We all learn how to, if you have a baby, you learn how to change a baby's diaper.
Yeah. And I don't know how I forgot this before, but actually, my let me think. Yes, great grandma, her name was Jessie. She had severe mental health issues, and she was institutionalized.
Mhm.
And she probably, her husband put her in the institution, and then he put the children in an orphanage. And my grandma was born in the institution.
Wow.
And then my grandma, when she was like, I think in her early 20s, found her sister, who's my Aunt Rosie. And then together they found their brothers, and I've never met their brothers. Um,
Oh.
and so, like, my great grandfather did what apparently the typical man would have done back then.
Mhm.
And she had, like, who knows what she had? She might have had just, like, postpartum depression.
I was gonna say, I bet it's postpartum depression, and it was hysterical, you know, and so, yeah, how heartbreaking, Christy.
Yeah, I guess maybe sometimes I try to block that out, but yeah,
Trauma.
so it's like
That's very traumatic right there, Christy.
yeah, like, she was in what I guess would be called an insane asylum probably,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and she died there, like, it was, like, 2 weeks after giving birth to my grandma. She passed
Mhm.
away,
Wow.
and, so it's like, yeah, he just, "Oh, I don't know what to do with these children and this woman here," so had her institutionalized, and then, put the kids up for adoption, and yeah, so awesome. Now, um, so, like, there are plenty of men, though, who can learn to be caretakers, or they already are caretakers. Like,
Mhm.
my fiancé, his name is Lonnie, he's great, like, he's definitely a breadwinner, like, he works and everything,
Mhm.
um, but, he actually did help his ex-wife run a home
Oh, really?
childcare, and they had, like, I think, like, 15 kids or something like that, and it was like a 24-hour thing,
Oh,
and
wow.
so he would go to work all day, and then he would come home and be the night shift at the childcare,
Wow, really?
and he changed diapers, fed babies, played games, made
Mm,
food, everything,
yeah,
every and
yeah.
so, Yeah, and he was very active in his daughter's life, and, yeah, and so, I have a feeling if I get a chronic illness, I'll be okay.
I'm
Otherwise, I
happy to hear
marry
that,
him.
Kate, and that just shows how why it's so important who you choose to be your partner, lifetime partner, and who you choose to have children with, if you choose to have children.
Yep. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, honestly, I've had discussions about that because, I have asthma and, and there's those mental health issues in my family
Mhm.
history. And so, but, he has, his own things that I'm sure when he gets older, I'll help him with. Um, and so it's more like reciprocal,
Mhm.
like, oh, he has these things and I'll help him with them. And,
Mhm.
he'll help me with this. And, you know, it's a reciprocal
Right.
relationship versus just I'm the caretaker, he's the provider. We're both providers and caretakers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's having that equilibrium in that relationship because you never know what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people think that they are the exception. Oh, it's not going to happen to me. He's never going to do that to me. And it's like, you know what? I'm glad that you have that confidence. I'm glad that you have this. Not everybody has that.
Yeah, and like people change too.
Yes.
Um, like and they might not even mean to change. They might think they want something and then they find out they don't. And um yeah, that's why I'm going to go back to, women, you really should just have a job.
I
uh,
know.
because like, your husband might think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then he changes, and then
Yeah.
you are not the greatest thing since sliced bread, and
Mhm.
you're just more like a burden, a financial burden, because he's paying for everything for you.
Mhm.
and and then, like the more burdensome you are, the less attractive, as a person, both
Mhm.
emotionally and physically you are. And so then the more likely he's, going to want a divorce.
Mhm.
And so, you need to have plan B, and you need to, know that you and, possibly if you have children, your children are not going to be screwed, you know, if he changes. Like you could change too, in all honesty.
Yeah. Both of you can change. Both of you can change. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize is people grow and change. When you're a 25-year-old, you're going to change when you're 40. I am not the 25-year-old. Thank God I'm not the 25-year-old. Oh my God. And so that's the thing. People grow and people change. And always just have your own resources. That's all. I think you and I see this. Please have your own resources. When I say resources, I mean everything. Everything. Like have your own resources because you never know when it may happen to you.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're just working part-time,
Yeah.
get some type of education first, so that, like, if something happens, you have that to lean back on, and
Mm-hmm.
you can pretty quickly get back into something. Um, and yeah, because the labor market's really tough. And I had another point, now I can't remember what it is. That's okay.
Yeah. It's tough right now, and even if you are in school, everything is happening so fast that you're not up to date with it. And if you choose not to work, which is perfectly fine, and you choose to go back to the market, you are competing. I think I've said that in other episodes, you're competing with fresh college graduates who are, who know what's going on, and even they are behind it. They are having a hard time finding a job. And so, if you haven't been in the job market for a long time and you're competing with them, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah. And I did remember my point. So if there's a large age difference between you and your spouse, think about that. Like think about,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So he wants to be with someone who's much younger than him. So when then I'm his age, is he gonna want to be with me?
Mhm.
So think about that. Um,
Right.
I know that older men are maybe more financially stable or maybe more emotionally stable or
They're not emotionally stable.
I'm not sure what the draw
They're
is.
not emotionally stable. They're not. Don't
Okay.
fall for that lie. They're not emotionally stable.
Um, but think about it. Like if you guys are 10 plus years apart in age, like it's because he wants a younger woman. Why does he want a younger woman? Like, and so when you look as old as you look at 10 years, will he still want you? And then if he doesn't, then what are you gonna do?
Mhm. Yeah, there's a few cases of well-known celebrities right now where their wives are like 20, 30 years younger and they have the chronic or the terminal illness. And now they are the caregivers and luckily they have the resources. But again, imagine if they didn't have the resources, how much a burden that would be.
Yeah.
Yes, I said the B word, burden. Yes, I did say that. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So, what
Um,
else would you like to add about this topic?
yeah, I mean, so boy, this really goes into mental health month too, because when you're like Paya said, when you're taking care of someone who has either a chronic medical or mental health issue that really wears on your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should seek out respite care and um and then help from anybody you get help from.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah. And if you still, want to get divorced, you know, if you live in Minnesota, please contact me.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't live in Minnesota, please use mediation.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a lot less expensive. And so then, like try to hash out everything as much as you can in mediation and then find two affordable attorneys or one affordable attorney to get all the documents written because using the traditional litigative system to get divorced is going to cost you guys so much money that how are you going to even pay that if you're paying a bunch of medical bills?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know how you're going to pay that if all your money is going out for medical bills currently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, our intention is not to judge or shame anybody who wants to get a divorce or who wants to, whatever it is going on in their marriage. And again, I believe that all of this, like when someone wants to divorce, it wasn't out of the blue. It's been long and coming, and they thought about it, and it's like
Yeah.
this is what I need to do. And then unfortunately, the shit hits a fan. It's like I can't do this, but I'm going to do this because I don't feel that I need to give more of my life to that person. And so it's never to judge or shame anybody. This is a resource, and whoever it is that may be going through this, I would really hope that you get the help that you need and to help decide what you feel is best for you. And again, what you feel is best for you often is not the best for somebody else. And you have to decide what you can do and live with.
Yeah. Yep. And boy, Paya's right that people don't just decide to get divorced overnight. As a matter of fact, I have people who contact me about getting divorced, and then finally 2 years later they pull the trigger. And they were probably thinking about it for 2 years before that too. So
They probably gave chance after chance after chance after chance. And holiday after holiday after holiday, Mother's Day, Christmas, Valentine's Day, and it's like birthdays. It's like, no, this is it. This is it. And so, um, again, for anybody who is going through this, we're not here to judge you. We're not here to shame you. Do what is best for you because we know that it just does not happen overnight, and life is short. Sometimes you have to start living your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Chrissy, before we end this episode?
Make informed decisions, be it medical, mental health, or legal. Make
Mhm.
informed decisions.
Yes, make informed decisions. Make informed decisions here. So I think that's like what our this is why we do this. It's like make informed decisions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Information is power.
Yes.
And if you don't have information, then you can be manipulated. That's a
Yes.
whole nother topic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a whole maybe that'll be for next month for June.
There you go. Manipulation.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure June is some kind of month that we could probably like pull it all in together. And so so happy like Women's Health Month, and all the women out there, please take care of yourself, take care of you in every way that you can. So all right then. Christine and I will see you all again next month, and everybody have a great June until then.
Have a
Take
great
care.
rest of your month.
Bye.